Beth. This is my farm, Goodfoot Farm. We are a certified biodynamic farm. We actually have been certified organic. We are currently not certified, but we will recertify next year. We have been on this property since 1999 when we purchased it, and we have been, I would say, actively farming it since 2012. We basically started with a blank slate. We have a 10-acre land base. Currently we have 2 acres in annual vegetable crops, including a couple of hoop houses for season extension. We have 1.5 acres of blueberries and a 1/2 acre tree fruit orchard. We also house 2 dogs and a cat. We have 5 sheep, 3 horses, lots of chickens. We have a layer flock, and then we currently have a batch of meat birds. And then we also have 9 geese that we keep on the farm. Our primary market is the farmer's market, so 99% of our produce goes direct to the consumer through the farmer's market and through a CSA program that we run as a farm credit where folks can pick out what they want at the market. We really have a strong connection to the folks that eat our food. They know us, we know them. The people that work our booth at the market, aside from myself, are also farm hands here on the farm, so they have an intimate knowledge of the food that's being grown. Have a really nice connection to the people who eat our food. Most small farmers I know want people to be able to afford their food. A lot of small farmers don't keep farming because they can't afford to farm. And so the issue there is to grow food that people can afford, and then also to be able to afford to farm. My priority has to be being able to afford to farm, and I need to support other folks that are in our community food system that help other folks access my food. The folks that work on match programs for the food stamps, the double up food bucks, for example, folks like that working all together are really what's going to help support sustainable farms and access to good food for all kind of economic categories of folks. So we focus on production agriculture on a very small scale. We have adopted organic growing practices, and then more specifically biodynamic growing practices. We like to say that biodynamics is the original regenerative agriculture, so the idea is not necessarily sustainable. We've kind of moved past that term sustainable because it's not enough. It's pretty widely recognized now that it's not enough to sustain what we have. We actually need to improve upon it. So to do that, it means adopting methods that actually regenerate soils, capture carbon, that regenerate air quality and water quality, that are actually improving our natural systems that we depend on. Biodynamics kind of takes that an additional step, not just regenerating what I would call our natural resources, but then also regenerating ourselves as people and as members of communities, how we relate to each other, how we relate to our land, our farms, our animals, and all of those things as well. So one of the things we do here on the farm along the lines of practicing biodynamics is integrating animals. Our animals on the farm do everything from provide fertility, to reduce our dependence on petroleum products, to take care of weeds and diseases and insect pests. We have sheep that we rotate around the farm depending on the time of year. They essentially mow the grass, they turn it into fertilizer, and they reduce our need to mow the grass, which requires running a mower and buying fuel to run that mower. In some of our more sensitive areas in our wet winters, the geese do a great job of mowing the grass, and with those wide webbed feet, they don't compact the soil. The geese are actually managed with the chickens. The laying flock rotates around the farm, doing assorted jobs depending on the time of year. Currently they're in the blueberry patch. They do there is they clean up berries that were not harvested. That reduces the potential for plant pathogens to overwinter on the ground in old crop debris. Chickens additionally are managed as a laying flock, so we do get eggs from the chickens and sell those at the farmer's market as well. And then the horses are the basis for our fertility program. The horses will also graze perennial pasture areas that are unsuitable for crop production, mostly because they're on slopes that would be susceptible to erosion if we were to till them up. The horses are utilized to graze those areas, and then we manage them in terms of housing so that we can capture their manures and then build compost piles to generate on-farm fertility. And whether it be a conventional farm or an organic farm, it's going to be the same type of system. You purchase your fertilizer, your pest control products, your petroleum fuel, your materials, what we would consider your farm inputs. Purchase those from off the farm, they enter your farm production system, and then you have product that leaves the farm. A biodynamic system, in contrast, is more holistic in the sense that as much as possible you're trying to generate those farm inputs from within what we call the farm organism. So the farm is looked at as a self-contained organism. So the idea being that there are different parts within that farm that support different functions of the farming production system. We maintain, for our biodynamic certification, we're required to maintain 10% of our land base as a biological diversity reserve. It's significantly more than that on our farm, but that's a minimum for the standard. A natural system, a wild system in nature, is typically a system that's in balance if it's allowed to kind of fulfill its role within an ecosystem. Systems that imbalance are very productive systems. So the idea with biodynamics is to manage your farm organism in such a way that it's balanced. And they've done studies to show that biodiversity is related to this idea of ecosystem balance, that when you have biologically diverse systems, they're balanced systems and they're productive systems. A lot of industrial organic agriculture uses huge levels of organic pesticides. To be honest, organic pesticides are not much friendlier, if at all, than conventional pesticides. In fact, they're less specific, and so will kill all sorts of bugs, and they run into problems with a lot of the organic pesticides actually target honeybees as well, and so it's really challenging for organic farmers to effectively use the pesticides available to them. So we just don't spray. We try to grow things to help support those good bugs. The farmer's role is to help the farm realize that potential and to help implement practices that would help realize that potential for self-sufficiency. Other parts of biodynamics that separates it from organics is the use of the biodynamic preparations. So Steiner outlined the preparations in his agriculture course back in the 1920s. Preparations are compounds that are made from plant and animal and mineral parts that are used like homeopathy. So they're made and used in minute quantities to help, again, restore balance to cropping systems. We will use what's called a biodynamic planting calendar that outlines, what phase of the moon it is, whether the moon's ascending or descending, and where the planets are, in order to help support kind of the plant processes that we want to have happening on the farm. The days are assigned a different crop part dependent on the cosmic structure. So a day will be a root day, a fruit day, a flower day, or a leaf. And so we will use the calendar to help us plan our work on the farm. If you think about the effect of the moon on the tides, so the moon is influencing water movement on the earth. The moon also influences water movement in plants. So for example, when we go out to prune our plants in the dormant season, we try to prune during a descending moon phase where the moon is not supporting sap rise in our plants, with the idea that that is less stressful to the plant. We don't let the planting calendar or the biodynamic practices get in the way of our farming. The idea is not that they tell us when not to do things. They're supposed to help us and support us in our practices. And so, if the calendar gets in the way of our getting the work done, we tend to put it aside and focus on getting the work done. We do need to be regenerative, and we can be looking at carbon in different ways and capturing carbon. The other thing that's not directly related to agriculture that biodynamics addresses and that this regenerative agriculture movement is tackling is the idea of food justice and fair labor standards, and this idea that we can't just isolate what happens on the farm in terms of the crop and what people are choosing to buy or to eat, but we do need to be looking at labor standards. What's the money flow in agriculture? How are people being treated? And how do people access food? So biodynamics from the get-go really has been looking at those issues in conjunction with agriculture. I think folks are taking notice of that. Eating is a political act, and so recognizing kind of the nuances of that and addressing it has become more important to the consumer, I think.